Hey guys, it's Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Today we're going to talk about coffees and your adrenals. Is coffee bad for your adrenals and your health? We're going to dive in. This is a common question I get asked by a lot of patients, and we'll make sense of it all. All right, before we do, make sure you smash that like button. Really appreciate it. Put your comments down below. Let me know how you feel with your adrenals and coffee, what you've noticed in your clinical experience. Really appreciate it. All right, let's dive in. So what is cooking in the area of coffee and your adrenals? So coffee obviously can be a stimulant, right? Coffee can stimulate cortisol and thus adrenaline, which can do some things to your body that may not be ideal. So what's the deal? Is it good or bad? So coffee in and of itself has a lot of different antioxidants and alkaloids and a lot of different nutrients in it. I kind of put coffee in the category of superfood. Now, there's a couple of caveats. Coffee can be very high in mold and or pesticides, mycotoxins. So you really want to buy a really good, high quality, kind of dry roasted. I like a lot of Central American kind of coffees, low humidity, dry roasted, organic, low pesticide load, all of that stuff. So coffee that makes me feel good, that has a good history and a track record of low mold, low mycotoxin, and low pesticides, of course, organic. That decreases a lot of the chemical and toxic load that coffee can first infer on you. So one, make sure toxic load is down, pesticides and or mold and mycotoxins. Number two, can you handle coffee? There are some people that have certain CYP SNPs that do not metabolize caffeine well. If that is you, no matter how good or healthy you are, and the coffee makes you feel anxious, jittery, heart palpitations, then it's probably not for you. Okay, that's probably the first thing. It's probably not for you. So if you have one of these genetic SNPs that makes you susceptible, that could be a problem. Coffee, not good for you. You can always try decaf coffee, which is basically 95% caffeine free. There's still about 5 milligrams of caffeine, so usually 100 milligrams a cup, and usually you get 5 milligrams in a decaf. So you get a little bit of caffeine in a decaf, even though it's decaffeinated in the Swiss water kind of process is probably the best way to get that to be caffeine free. Number three is, when do you consume coffee? So I typically recommend, if you're going to consume coffee that has caffeine in it, regular or caffeinated coffee, you do it in the first couple hours of waking. In the first hour or two waking, definitely nothing after noontime, so it does not affect your circadian rhythm. Right? Caffeine's got a half-life of about 8 hours, so if you start consuming caffeine after noontime, it's going to be in your system at bedtime. We want to make sure, relatively speaking, it's really not going to be in our system at bedtime. So you have that half-life at 8 hours, and then it reduces again and reduces again. And it's out of your system, mostly by bedtime. If you give it at least 12 hours, it's going to be mostly out of your system by then. It shouldn't affect you. Some people are very rare, and they may be these CYP SNP people, and they just can't tolerate it, okay? So I'd say that's the second thing. The third thing is, if you have a problem with caffeine, or you want to do caffeine and you want to, let's say, curb the side effects of caffeine, is you can put fat in your coffee. So fat tends to time release the caffeine. So this is the equivalent of taking shots of vodka versus sipping on a nice glass of wine. There's a difference in how that hits your body if you do a shot versus sip on a glass of wine. It's the same thing with coffee. So if we consume coffee that has maybe some nice MCT oil or butterfat or maybe both, then you can basically take that caffeine and time release it, so that caffeine now comes really slow into your system and it's not coming all at once. I'm a firm believer how fast caffeine goes into your bloodstream can create more problems with caffeine. The slower and the more time release it is, the better. It's kind of like consuming too much carbohydrates, right? The more processed, refined sugar you consume, the faster it makes your blood sugar go up and down. The more you're consuming healthy carbs that are more time released, right? Vegetables, maybe high fiber fruit, then that carbohydrate goes into your blood sugar much more in a time release fashion. So time release matters. How hard or how fast it hits your bloodstream and system can cause more problems. Fat time releases it. And if you want, you can even do one better. You can add some collagen in that coffee as well, and that kind of makes it a complete meal. You have some carbohydrate within the coffee beans, you have some fats within the butter or MCT, and then you add some collagen amino acids, 10 to 20 grams, and then you kind of make it a complete meal, right? About 500 calories or so per 12 or 16 ounces with all that, tablespoon of butter, MCT, and 10 to 20 grams of collagen. That makes it a complete meal. So that's a good way to kind of nullify the side effects of coffee, is having good amino acids in there, because part of that stress response can make you more catabolic. You break down more protein. But guess what? If you have good amino acids already flooding in your bloodstream, flowing around in there, flooded your bloodstream with those collagen aminos, well, now that catabolic nature is going to use those amino acids that are in your bloodstream and not your tissue. So there's ways we can mitigate it. One, choosing lower toxin coffee, less pesticide, low mycotoxin. 2, making sure if you have a genetic SNP issue, maybe go to decaf, or maybe not do coffee, or maybe do a gentle decaffeinated tea. That's a better way to do it. 3, time release it, right? Fats, proteins, okay? And then try to make sure that coffee is consumed before noontime, ideally in the first hour or 2 waking up. So if you're up at 6, have that coffee consumed by 8, 7, do it by 9. That way it's in your system and it's going to have enough time to work its way out. And then you're going to time release it so it doesn't hit your system as hard. The slower it hits your system, the more your body can adapt to it and deal with it. And you still get a lot of the antioxidant benefits when you consume the coffee. Coffee is still loaded with a lot of antioxidants, a lot of anti-aging compounds. Very beneficial if you can tolerate it. If you have a CYP SNP, if you have adrenal and blood sugar issues already, the caffeine may be too much of a stress for you. So if that's the case, if you're people that typically have caffeine issues, they're consuming caffeine all day long. 1 or 2 glasses in the morning, 1 or 2 in the afternoon, 1 or 2 late afternoon. And those are the people that are really having caffeine, adrenal issues. When you're consuming caffeine like that, now it's disrupting your circadian rhythm, and now it's going to be in your bloodstream all day, maybe even all night if you're consuming nighttime coffee. So that's a problem. So 1, do it in the first, 1 to 2 hours of waking up. Maybe keep it to like under 16 ounces total, maybe 2 to 3 cups max. And again, adding in fats and proteins time releases that coffee, and it allows it to hit your system slower so it does not create a stress response. And if you're a person that's a CYP SNP person and even following all these suggestions, you still can't tolerate coffee, listen to your body. Your body is talking to you. Try the suggestions I mentioned first. If that's still a problem, go to decaf coffee and see how that is. That's 95% now caffeine free. If that's still a problem, then it could be some kind of a deeper issue with coffee, maybe still a caffeine issue. And you can always go to like a green tea, which has a little bit of caffeine in it. If you're good with green tea, it's probably not a caffeine issue. It's probably more of a coffee allergy issue. And then you can always go to a gentle ginger or chamomile tea, something that's more gentle and caffeine free. And you can always just go to something like bone broth in the morning too. Some people just want something warm in the morning to wake up to. And you can always go to something like bone broth that does have some good fat and amino acids in it too, as a gentle coffee, tea, caffeine substitute. All right, this is Dr. J here. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope it makes a lot of sense to you and you feel like you can apply it. I want to give action-oriented information, things that I apply in my practice on a day in, day out basis with my patients from all over the world. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to dive in deeper and you want to reach out, feel free to click down below. You can schedule a consult with myself and or my colleagues. We'll be happy to help you out. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you put comments below. And if you enjoy the content, send it to a family or friend that has some coffee or caffeine issues. All right, let me hit a couple other questions here from listeners worldwide. I'm going to hit it to only relevant questions, guys. I notice coffee helps me go to the bathroom in the morning. What can I do to make it less of a stick situation? No marks on the toilet. It just depends. Coffee will make your bowels maybe move a little bit more. And if you're consuming a lot of MCT, your bowels could be a little bit more overactive in the morning with a lot of these extra laxatives on there. Just make sure you come in there. You could always consume a little bit more fiber to help solidify it. Worst case, you just get some extra minerals in your body afterwards to kind of rehydrate. Yeah, dehydration can be an issue, but again, it's only really going to be a problem if you aren't hydrating the rest of the day. And ideally, hydrate first thing in the morning. Wake up, have your coffee, have 1 to 2 glasses of water with some really good minerals, clean filtered water first thing. Then you can have your coffee, and then you can drink throughout the day. So as long as you're drinking throughout the day, you should be fine. It's when you're drinking chronic caffeine or chronic coffee throughout the day, now you're constantly in this diuretic state, losing lots of water and losing all minerals. So as long as you do well hydrating first thing and hydrating after coffee throughout the day, you're going to be fine. If you're consuming coffee throughout the day, probably not good. But if you are, just do your best to make sure you're getting extra minerals in between to help make up for it. If someone is tested with low cortisol issues, can they still have coffee? They feel better having it around noon and very sleepy by bedtime. I just still wouldn't do it by noontime. I'd be working on more adaptogens and other nutrient and adrenal support. But if you wanted to do it in the morning, that'd be fine. That way it's not affecting circadian rhythm and it's just happening in the morning. But you'd want to be using other adrenal support to really help that. Do you like a bio coffee as a substitute? Yeah, there's some good substitutes. I know there's a couple of coffee substitutes out there. I think one begins with a T. It's like not tahini, but it sounds something like that. But it's a good coffee substitute that tastes like coffee, and it doesn't have coffee in it. It has more of like a root. It's like a root kind of thing in there. And then of course there's some other like coffee substitutes that are more kind of mushroom-based coffees that are interesting. Yep, I think that's pretty cool. And one of the ones that I know patients have said they like to me is, it's called, I'll pull it up here in a second. We'll put an Amazon link below for it. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a chicory root coffee. Yeah, chicory root coffee is a good one. And it tastes pretty good. There's a couple other coffees that are out there, like for somatic, that have more of the mushroom stuff in there. Yeah, it's Ticino. Ticino is a good one for the herbal, or for the chicory root coffee. That's a good one. Excellent. All right, any other questions, guys? Let me see if anything else in the queue here. All right, I think we hit all of it here, guys. You guys have a phenomenal day. Good chatting with y'all. Take care. Bye now.